Hello everyone, today we are reviewing When Women Rule the World, 6 Queens of Egypt by Cooney. So let's get started. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Media Coven. Like I said, we're reviewing the book When Women Rule the World. This is one of those books that I got because I was trying to do the Goodreads bookmark challenge. If you guys don't know what that is, when you go into Goodreads, the place where you enter the books that you're reading, they give you challenge that if you read certain books, they give you like a little bookmark within the page, and then you can collect as many as you can, and then you earn more depending on what books you read, and then you also get some depending on, I believe, also in how many books you read during a certain time. And then if you want to collect specific bookmarks, what you actually do is you go click on the link, and then when you click on the link, you actually see all the books that are eligible to get that bookmark. So when I read this book, that's what I did. I was trying to get books from there. I did a couple of them and then I got over it. I didn't want to do I didn't want to read books that were maybe not books that I wanted to read. Some of them actually were interesting and I found some that I liked. But I was like, I'd rather just pick the books that I like to read, and hopefully they hit some of the bookmarks so I can get them, because that has happened where some of the books I'm reading were on the list, so they just gave me the bookmark. And again, it's not really a real bookmark. It's just in the applications. You can see what rewards you get. It's like what Kindle does when you read a certain amount of time. They give you those little trophies where they tell you that you've read certain books, that you read for a certain time. And that's just it's just like bragging rights for yourself. But the book we're discussing today is called When Women Rule the World, 6 Queens of Egypt by Cooney. And this book looks like it's part of the National Geographic type of books. You know how National Geographic sometimes releases some books about stuff like that. This book was one of those books that I found somewhat interesting. It was like exciting and interesting, and then at the same time I was like, I don't know. And I don't want to say too much because I always end up saying what I think about the book. Then I read the review I wrote, and the review ends up saying all the things I just said. So what's the point of me writing the review? So let's start with the review. When Women Rule the World, 6 Queens of Egypt by Cooney, and I gave it 3 stars. So I guess it wasn't really my favorite book. And see, that's why I say I shouldn't talk too much. This book I picked up because it was one of the many choices of books to pick up to get my Her Story bookmark. So that's the other thing I didn't get to mention. All of the bookmarks you collect in Goodreads, they actually have like names on them. This one, I guess it was Her Story. So that bookmark, to get it, you have to read a book that had to do with story about the female perspective. I guess that's why this book is the one I decided to pick. I was actually excited to read this book because the only book I've read about Egyptian women has been Cleopatra. I was interested to know about other important figures. The book starts out great. Overall, it's good, but as you go into the stories, the author starts writing about modern issues, making comparisons with things about Trump, Hillary, and the Obama era. I did not like this because it felt like I got pulled out of the setting she was laying out. I prefer when authors make vague comparisons with modern issues, but don't directly reference what's going on like right now or what will happen. It ruined the rest of the story for me, and the author kept doing this throughout the book, at least through maybe 70% of the book. Towards the final part, the tone was changed to how I like, which is just making reference and comparisons to modern issues. One of the reasons why I didn't like the parts where modern things are brought up is because you get a full dose of the author's viewpoints. They come up very clearly. And a book like this should be written from a perspective of laying out the facts and letting the reader connect the dots. A lot of this book gives out this energy of we know her political viewpoints, her stance on women's rights and unfairness times we still live in, but the message would have been more powerful if the author would have let the reader come to the conclusions of how unfair women have it. There was this anger, which I completely understand, but for this type of book, the author could have pulled back so we can feel the emotions. Something I did enjoy is the stories of the dynamics between families. So now reading back my review, I remember the main reason why I didn't like this book. So when you're reading a book about history, and they're setting the environment, like I said in the review, you're reading about a certain time and how the world worked during that time. And something about reading that and then jumping to this is going on right now and it's still going on and what, it kind of took me out of the story, and I didn't like that. She should have just kept it. I think if the story was just about the women in history that were doing a good job, and the queens that ruled and how they ruled, and the family dynamic and how all of that worked, I think it would have been enough. And then we as the reader would have made the connection to go, this was happening a long time ago and this is still going on right now. This dynamic of women being put in a certain position. And when the author sometimes goes into details or tells you the comparisons, it makes the reader feel maybe like they think you're dumb. And maybe that was the problem with the book. That's the only problem I had. Like I said, it was a good read. I did enjoy listening to the stories or reading the stories, but I didn't like that they kept pulling things from now and then comparing it to things from back there. I would have loved it if it would have stayed just at that time and not gone back and forth. And I ended up giving it 3 stars. For me, 3 stars means that I somewhat enjoyed it, but it wasn't the greatest read. And I might read it again, but I don't think so. Like I think reading it one time was good enough. But like I said, I was interested in hearing about this because I think the only queen that we hear about is always Cleopatra. So it was interesting to hear that there were other queens that ruled during that time and that did a lot of big changes. You can see my cat in the background playing like crazy. But like I said, I like hearing about other queens, other stories from that time, and that Cleopatra might have been the biggest one, the ones that we all know, but it turns out that there were a whole bunch of them. And we saw how they work in the dynamic between family, between how they rule different from men, or how they rule exactly like men, but maybe they thought it was different. So like I said, it was an enjoyable book. I did learn a couple new stuff, but at the end of it, I felt like I didn't like that comparison she was doing, like I said before, where she was going back and forth. Like I was like, I'm over it. I don't want to, like, the way that I see politics, everything going on right now, the reason why I'm reading books is because I don't want to listen to that anymore. I want to go away from it. And because of everything going on right now, I'm guessing that when I read this book, the last thing I wanted was to hear about the government right now. So I was just, why is she bringing this up? I just wanted to read about the queens. Don't tell me about what's going on. So it might have been a little, maybe on my part, that's why I didn't like it, because of things I'm going through right now. And maybe I can't handle what's going on right now, so I'm receiving information different. Maybe if things weren't the way they were, if I would have read the book, it wouldn't affected me like it did, but it did. So for now, it's 3 stars, and I don't think I'm going to read it again, so it's going to stay 3 stars. And like I said, it is a good book. If you like reading about Egypt, and you like learning about the queens that they existed during that time and all the things that they were able to accomplish. And I'm guessing that if their stories are being told even now in books now, it was significant enough that it wasn't erased from time, that we still know about them. So that's a plus. That's something good. And like I said, I definitely recommend it if you want to read about Egypt, if you want to read about queens. And don't let the way I saw it affect how you read it when you read it. Like, it's probably a good book. It's just my mindset right now did not want to go about politics. I just wanted to enjoy a good book about that. But anyway, that's it. I gave this book 3 stars. And thank you so much for watching. And keep on watching. I have more book reviews on the way and more movie reviews and a lot more stuff. I'm working little by little. So thank you so much. Remember to keep on reading, vibe to the music, and keep your eyes on the screen. Goodbye.